been at it again. Was actually on Monster this time. And I thought, well, I haven't been, hearing much from them. I'll just, do a search. So I did, and I found a job. I found jobs that I've really had a desire to have. And sometimes what you're going to find out is that even though you can upload a resume to these different sites, or at least they say you can, you have to go through the process all over again. I mean, you upload it, and sometimes if the software is all compatible and all that, then it'll just transfer information and you only have to fill in a few blanks. But most of the time, at least my experience so far has been that even when you upload a resume, which is still a good idea, but you have to, at least I've had to go through the entire process, or all of the process. Anyway, a job that I just applied for that seemed like seemed like something I would want. And my point is you have to, it seems like a hassle, but what choice have you got? You've got to knuckle down and do this, and for me to go through that entire process of some of these are very thorough, very detailed. An hour to an hour and a half, which, what choice do you have? You need to do it. You need to have the attitude that that's just part of it, and it is. That's just part of all this situation. I'll be back. Anyway, that is the reality of your situation when you're unemployed, is you can't get, you can't let these things bother you. For a moment, I was letting it bother me, and I just said, well, wait a minute. You're unemployed. What else are you going to do? Just not go along with what you have to do, and the reality of the situation. Sometimes you swim a lot better with the current than against it. So the jobs are certainly not going to come marching to you. You've got to do what you need to do, within reason, to comply with, and a lot of jobs, it's like I said in an earlier video, they're not going to let you apply any other way. And so you just have to do what you have to do. And but I sure must admit, like I've said several times before, you got to get up and walk away from it for a while. It's kind of hard to describe, but it does, it affects your thinking if you sit too long. And with this single, minded fixation of finding a job, that is the task at hand, but you've got to give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. And that's what I'm doing right now. By the way, like I had mentioned in a previous video, that if you have money to blow, fine. Although I can't fathom someone being without a job and having money to blow. What my point is find things that don't cost anything to do, which is what I'm doing right now. I have a task to perform that it gives me some distraction. It's work. It's something I need to do, and it's quite a ways from home, but it needs to be done. But it doesn't cost me anything more than gas. And so find things that don't cost little, if anything at all. The cheaper, the better. And this may seem like it goes without saying, but you would be absolutely astonished at especially young people who don't believe for 1 second that they can go and do something and be happy and have fun at it. if it doesn't involve spending money or charging things on a credit card. I mean, the older people, they understand, or at least they should. But young people, if there's any young people out there listening to me, be patient about it. These bad times will pass. I mean, they're bad and probably going to get worse. I've lived through some recessions before, very bad ones, as a matter of fact. One of the very worst for this area was back in 1984, which was when I graduated from college. Now, here's an interesting thing. You can go on YouTube and you see a bottomless pit of videos. Mainstream media, too, has had a lot to say about this, about the young people get out of college with all this college debt and no hope. Let me tell you, I lived through that in 1985. Graduated in August of 1985 with a bachelor's degree that I'd spent 9 years getting, because I had to work during the day and go to school at night. And that was at the very pinnacle of the horrible, horrible collapse. Every bit as bad as what we're living through right now. It was localized, though, because back in those days, recessions weren't like they are now, where you got a world economy, and it seems like they're all... there's a recession everywhere, but back then there could be localized recessions, and one of them was in the oil and gas. And for 6 years, I know it sounds hard to believe, for 6 years I couldn't find a job. I had to do part-time jobs and odd jobs and things like that. I can even remember the frustration of going down weekly to the Employment Commission, and the way you looked for jobs back then is totally different than how you do it today. And people just, the thing that stands out in my mind the most about that time in my life was how people were so totally unsympathetic. Totally, it was incomprehensible what you were going through. The frustration of applying for all of these jobs and never hearing back from anyone, and nobody really admitting we were in the grips of a depression. It was a mini depression. In the Southwest, the South and Southwest, especially if you were in oil and gas. And I even remember asking a businessman, why don't he agreed that we were in a depression, but I said, well, why don't they call it what it is? Of course, he didn't have a good answer, but of course, back is the same reason that they refuse to call it what it is today. There's too much political cost to admitting the truth of something like that. And I believe that no matter how bad things get, that are coming right around the corner, I mean this year and next year, and I believe they will be the worst in 5 generations that economic times have been in this nation. They still won't admit, mainstream media is owned lock, stock, and barrel by the people who are causing these problems. They won't admit what we're going through. And to an extent, that's the way it is in wartime too, which we may see that as well. I hope to God we don't, but everything is shaping up and pointing straight in that direction. Anyway, think back to that time in my life when it was so very hard. Oh, the frustration, you can't even put into words. And I know that a lot of young people, and I know older people too, are going through that very thing, which that brings me to the next subject I was kind of wanting to just touch on. That is that one of the things, I can't remember if I had mentioned this in an earlier video or not. One thing that I was seriously open to was cross-training, training into a new career field altogether. The catch-22 with that, and there is some help, believe it or not, there is some help available in that way. It's limited to a 2-year degree, at least from what I understand. If I understand the program right, it's the people from the Employment Commission told me some time ago that they had programs and you could just pick whatever it is that you want, any program, but it was limited to 2-year degree. But here's the catch-22. How do you pay for a place to live during that time? You've got to have a job to support yourself for this time, and that right there will disqualify you from most of the programs. It's such typical politics. I mean, it's just astonishing that that these crises are prolonged. They'll have a program, but there's no way you can participate in it because you've got to have a job to support yourself. And in my case, the closest school is 90 miles that I would be able to go to. How do you pay for the gas? You see what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm open to that, and I am going to investigate that and see what part that all may play, and if I can do it, because really, honestly, at this point in my life, I would like a new career. I'm tired of doing what I've been doing. The jobs I'm applying for right now are higher levels in that same profession, because I have enough years behind me in it that management is my goal. But I'm not closing any doors. I'm not refusing to consider anything, and like always, stuff can lead in directions you never dreamt of, so it may happen anyway. But anyway, that's all for the moment. I'll check back in when there's more to talk about.